On to build 2. So we're going to begin adding more content to our layout. So we're going to begin with the header. We're going to add our H1, our H2, and then in our main area, we are going to add our rocket. And then in our section, we are going to add the words to our song. Now, I went with Song Lyrics Generator, and then I went down and I went with the Cranberries. Okay, what can I say? I like the Cranberries. And I built a song. Now, when I built the song from the generator, I had no idea what it would be based off of. Okay, but after I got the lyrics at the end of going through the process with the generator, that I see that it's in the style of the Cranberries. But then I started reading the words, and the words were from the song Linger, but it wasn't like so obvious. So I'm not thinking there's going to be any copyright issue. Okay, and let's see. Okay, so let's go back and let's go up, and we're going to start with our header area. And I'm working on this. My wife comes in and she looks at it and she goes, "Doinker," and I go up. I don't know. I looked it up. I got the song lyrics back, and it was in the song lyrics, and I looked it up, and it had something to do with hunting. Now, I don't know what else to say about it. It's a weird word. Okay. All right, so let's get rid of this one. We don't need our song generator up here anymore. And if you want, you can go and listen to the Cranberries anytime you like. Okay, so let's go back and let's first scroll down and let's find our header. And I've gone ahead and the position is relative. I'm going to set a width. And at one point, I'm going to change this. I'm just going to set the width to auto as well as the height to auto. Okay, but I can keep the width at 500. The type that's inside of it is would go outside of it anyway, because we're not setting the overflow to hidden. And then we have, and I should say, then we have our margin for moving our element relative to the relative to the container, the upper left-hand corner of the container. Then we have our H1 position relative. I'm setting the font size to 130. Remember, when we started all this, when I'm done and I'm completely finished, I'm going to go back to all of my units and change them all to rems. Okay. Now, so I have a font size of 130, and again, what I'm trying to create is what I have in this sketch here. Okay. So I'm going to start out with 130. I'm adding some color to the H1, and then I'm using the WebKit text fill color, and this is going to override the color regardless of the order. I have it following, so it would override it, but even if it were in front of the font size, in front of the color, it would override it. Okay, so then we're going to add a WebKit text stroke width, and we're going to add a WebKit text stroke color. And then we have header 2. The position is relative. I'm using some negative margin because I really want to move this up. Okay. And let's see, I set my font size to 32 and we set some color. So what we should have is this. Now I still have some border on. I'll get rid of these borders as we go here. All right, so there's my headline. And if we go back, this is in my header. I went ahead and set the font family to Schwanky, one I found on Google Fonts. Okay. And make sure if you use a Google font, make sure you add your font to the head of the document. All right. Okay, so we have our header in. The next thing we're dealing with is our rocket. Okay, so our rocket is also inside the main element. So here's main, and let's just take a quick look at main. The position is relative. I'm setting a width of 1030 pixels, a height of 1000, and I'm doing this because I'm using a background image. Okay, then we're using our margin to position our element. So this, in this area right here, that's our main. So we have our container, we have our our header based off of the upper left corner. Then we have a main element, okay, which is going to be based off relative to where this element, the header, is. This will be relative to wherever this is in the layout. And then we have our section inside with our lyrics. And then we also have our rocket inside, but I'm going to use negative margin on the rocket. So let's go back and we'll take a look at our rocket. Relative position, negative top and left. I'm going to set the width. Our height can be auto. It'll automatically adjust because the image is inside. And let's just go back up, and I should mention, so we have our background image. Background repeat, no repeat. I don't want this to repeat. I'm going to set the background size to cover. That way the image will make sure it stretches from one side of the element to the other. Okay, so that's why we're setting our background size to cover. My background position is 0, 0. Not that I really need to call this out, but I'm placing it here just in case I do want to move that image relative to the upper left-hand corner of the main element. Okay, now let's get at the rocket. Position relative, top and left are negative numbers. The width is 200. Height will automatically adjust to the image inside. And I went with margin to move this element around, but it affected the other elements. So I changed my strategy. Okay, so when I use margin, then my margin was affecting elements around it. So I went ahead and went with top and left instead of margin in this case to move my element around. And then we're going to use our transform, and we're going to rotate our rocket until we're happy with the direction that it's pointing. And I got rid of the border. And then we're going to target image inside of rocket. And this way I can set the width to 100%. And if I change my mind on the width here, then the image will change. Okay. Then we have our lyrics. Position relative. Again, I'm using top and left numbers to move my section around because working with margin wasn't giving me the best result. When I changed one thing, other things would change, and I didn't want that. So this sort of took that action away. And we got rid of our border. Then we have our section P. I'm just using for Dana, setting my font size, font weight, some line height, so we have some space in between our text. Then I'm using 35 pixels of margin on the bottom to separate the verses. And let's go ahead and take a look. And if we scroll down, you'll see, matter of fact, let me just zoom out a little bit. All right. So you'll see there's our header. This is our main area with our background graphic, and that is this ribbon shape and this white. And then this is our div with our class rocket. And then this is our section with our type. And you'll see that we have space between our paragraphs. And if we go back and look at our HTML code, I'm using BR breaks to break each of my lines in my lyrics. Okay. All right. So let's go back. Have to zoom back in. Then we'll scroll down And let's take a look. And I don't have anything in the footer yet, but you notice that we do have a credit for the graphics, which I'm using from FreePick. And our footer over here is still positioned to absolute. This will probably change later on. Okay. All right. So now we have added more content. We're beginning to move that content around, and we're getting closer and closer to realizing our sketch. So if I go back, zoom back out. Now it's not, this type's going to default right now, but you'll see that our general layout is getting closer to our original sketch.